Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to MicroChannel's session for today, BI360. Thanks all for joining us. We have a packed house today. We're expecting over 100 people to attend the session. There's still people joining us as I speak. Obviously, appreciate the time that you're putting aside to join us today. We're going to be looking at BI360, which is for the purposes of what we're showing you today, a financial reporter solution for SAP Business One. Many of you, I'm sure, will have heard of Excel Reporter. Excel Reporter is now history. MicroChannel has partnered with the Solver guys who have been around for a long time and have a fantastic product, BI360. That's what we're showing you today, and it's clear by the number of attendees that are joining us still, even as I speak, that for you guys this is a very important area that you want to see. So again, thanks for joining us today. I'm going to now introduce you all to the Managing Director of Solver, the head, if you like, of BI360. His name is Mike Kimbrough. Mike, thanks for coming along and taking us through. Let's have a look at BI360 in detail. Now, before I get you started, Mike, audience, I just want to suggest we'll hold off on questions. We'll have a Q&A session at the end of Mike's presentation, only because we do have so many people on the line at the moment. We're also recording the session, so if you'd like a copy afterwards, please contact us for that. And if you equally, if you know of any friends that would like a copy as well, we'd be happy to pass that on. So we'll leave the Q&A until the end of the session. But for now, let me hand over to Mike Kimbrough from BI360. Hello, Mike.
Hello, thank you for the introduction. Can you hear me well? I'm going to talk a little bit about today's agenda. I'm going to start off the session today showing you the BI360 Excel-based report writing. There's going to be really two twists to this. One, I'm going to show you SAP Business One live reporting and show you also the enterprise reporting with the data warehouse. And really the only thing that's going to change in the tool is that I'm just going to switch databases. So the importance of that is that I can choose to either write a report that's going to be live off of SAP V1, or I can choose to write a report or view a report off of the data warehouse. The difference there is that the data warehouse is going to include data that's outside of V1. So if as an organization you have disparate data, that's kind of what we're talking about when we reference enterprise reporting. From there, I'm going to move into the web portal. And what that really is there's really two user experiences. Certainly, we build everything within Excel, but we can also deliver those reports via Excel. But really, if you want to get into really purely a user experience, that's going to be the web portal. I'm going to show you that today. And I'm also going to show you, again, live reporting off of SAP V1, not only from the report writing side, but also from the dashboard side, so the analytics side. We'll also do enterprise reporting again, so show you the data warehouse. It's really just giving you two different ways to be able to view the data, run reports. Kind of what I like to say is you can have reporting your way. And then we just recently decided to add a little bit of budgeting, so if we've got enough time today, since I'll already be in the web portal, I'll try to show you 5 minutes or so of budgeting so everybody gets a flavor of that. So the only purpose of me showing you the customer slide, one is to get kind of a quick glimpse of our customers, but I've listed a number of different verticals. And it's important to point out that we don't do one vertical better than we do any other. So we wouldn't do sports teams and media any better than we would healthcare. And the reason for that is it's really about, there's really two reasons. One is that it's all about, can you design the reports and the budget templates and forecast templates that you want in the Excel tool, and do you have access to all the data? And certainly BI360 is going to deliver that, and I'm going to show you more of that as we go through today's session. this is by far, this will be the last PowerPoint that I show you today, but it's by far the most important thing that I'm going to show you. And I'm going to spend a couple of minutes just walking you through this. It's important to point out it's not indicative of our entire product offering. This is really kind of the foundation, if you will. It's how the major components of our solution interact. And everything really starts with report writing. So we have an Excel add-in. We use Excel with respect to reporting for all the things that you love about Excel: format, formulation, and design. It's very important to point out that at no point in time, whether we're talking about reporting or whether we're talking about your budgets and forecasts, no point in time do we ever store any data inside of Excel, right? So we're using Excel as the presentation layer. So you'll notice that there is a dotted line going from report writing into SAP V1. That indicates it's a live integration. So if you were to post a transaction into V1, I could report off of it instantaneously. I refresh that report, I'll be able to see that data. Okay? Some other important things, if you were familiar with using XLR in the past, you'll see that some of this will look familiar to you, but there are some differences. Number one, the tool is far more advanced. It's a third generation Excel add-in, so it's far more advanced than what you're used to with XLR. And we also have something from a performance standpoint that kind of sits right here in the middle. It's called the staging database. So if as a customer you have reports that are a little bit more performance-minded than others, and you wanted to add the staging database for those reports, you could certainly do that. So we can get to everything inside of B1. So not only the general ledger level, but the sub-ledger level. If you've got user-defined fields or tables or customizations, third-party products, we can get to those as well. Our product, our report writing product, comes with an easy-to-configure integration tool. That comes with the product. So now you kind of understand we can get to everything within inside of SAP V1, but what about the rest of the organization? So maybe you have a CRM system, or you've acquired a company and you've got another ERP system that you want to include, or an industry-related system, or databases or Excel spreadsheets, whatever it is, whatever that disparate data source is, we can bring that data into our pre-built Microsoft SQL data warehouse. And I know that when I say data warehouse, people get a little bit scared. They imagine this large silo with an army of IT people marching in. That's not at all what this is. BI360 by design is a self-service suite, so this is a pre-built finished data warehouse. It comes out of the box with 7 modules, and those modules: general ledger, accounts payable, accounts receivable, projects, payroll, CapEx, etc. You can add up to 50 modules. So what would a module be? And I'm going to point this out to you when I start the demo, but what would a module be? It would be CRM, right? So if you had a CRM system, you could call the module CRM, and then underneath CRM you would have all your dimensions and attributes, all your data related to that system. So you can add up to 50 modules. So the data warehouse also does a lot of other things too. So not only does it store all of your disparate data, but it has a full multi-currency engine in it. So if you're dealing with multiple currencies, it's going to have the ability to store all of your rates. It also does advanced consolidations and auto eliminations. So if you need to do auto eliminations, the data warehouse will manage that for you as well. You can also do manual adjustments. And one thing that's really cool about the data warehouse that I'll demonstrate for you today is it also does trees. So imagine if you've got any type of hierarchical tree, whether that's entities or cost centers or products or whatever it is that lines of industry that you'd like to be able to hierarchical trees, you can build an unlimited number of hierarchical trees within the data warehouse. Okay? So now you know that you've got all that disparate data, you've got all of your B1 actuals in here, and you'll notice that our report writing tool is integrated out of the box, obviously, to our data warehouse. So I can virtually say, well, I want to run a live report off the B1, or I want to run a report off the data warehouse and include all that other data that's not part of B1. So the next step in our process, which we'll try to talk about and show a little bit today, is our planning tool, so budgets and forecasts. It's virtually the exact same tool as report writing, except with report writing, you're pulling data. With budgets and forecasts, you're pulling data, you're adding data, you're manipulating that data, and obviously you need a place to store that data. Where do we store the data? We store that data back into our data warehouse. So you can see now that that data warehouse is the heart of what we do, really, right? We've got all of the disparate data, all the actuals, an unlimited number of budgets and forecasts, and we can report off of all of that. You'll note in the next area over here, the dashboards, you'll also notice that dashboards, just like reporting, works the same way. I can pull live dashboards off of B1, or I can pull dashboards off of my data warehouse. Important to point out, as I kind of talked in the agenda, is that reporting and planning are both available via Excel or via the web. Dashboards is a web-based tool only. Okay? We also have smartphone and tablet capabilities as well. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and pop into the demo. So let's talk about just some of the general things here. Is I'm running Excel 2010, and you'll notice that I have the a planning tab up here, as well as I've got a reporting tab, and this is where I go in to build my reports. I'll also point out to you that I'm running in the OEC Computers company. That's the sample company for SAP B1. I want for a minute for everybody just to forget about the design tab. That's when we get into the super user. Right now we're talking just about the user experience. So the user experience would have just the run tab. So that means somebody built the report for them, the report was distributed out to them, they have the ability to change some data, and they have the ability to drill down within reports. So what you're looking at is a finished formatted report, which you'll notice, as I said before, there's no data in this report. So when this report was built for me, it gave me the option for these two filters. One is choose a period, the other is choose a budget version. So these are completely definable. They're filters, but we call them parameters. So if I wanted to simply just go change the period on this, I could just go pick a different period, whatever it was, and say OK, and then I'm ready to run the report. And I could do the same with the budget. Am I doing the main budget? Am I doing a secondary budget? If I have multiple versions or scenarios, I could also add those as parameters, and I'll show you that here in a minute. So I simply say run, and this is going into B1 Live, and it's pulling out the data. And what you're going to see is you'll see that there's a really nice looking report, right? So it's very indicative of what you'll see with Excel. So you're going to see, graphs from Excel. You're going to see expansion groups. So here I have an expanding collapsing group. So if I wanted to collapse that to get a better view of the report, I can do that. You'll also notice that I have conditional formatting. I could do traffic lights or incel graphs. Standard Excel stuff, right? So I'm using the power of design within Excel along with the BI360 tool. So all that stuff that I'm familiar with. If I wanted to know more about JV printer revenues and I wanted to drill down to this, I simply right-click, and you can see that I now have 2 levels of drill down. And I'm going to point out these are also completely definable. Just like we talked about, parameters can be defined, whoever's building that report, so can the level of drill downs. I can drill all the way back to a source document. So if I was in here and I wanted to drill back and see a sales invoice, if it was built that way for me, I could do that. This report was just built for me to drill into the ledger transaction level, and here I can see that journal transaction. So if I scroll over to the right, you can see I have more information, amount, et cetera, et cetera. There's only one transaction that made up that number. You'll also notice down here that I have another tab. I could just add another tab, standard Excel stuff, that would give me detail about the report, or if I wanted to provide instructions, very easy to do that. You'll also notice that I can change this and I can say publish. So what publish means, if I run that, you'll notice that the entire left-hand side of this report disappears. So that's our add-in, right? So it's going to be gone. And what that means now is that I'm just in standard Excel. So I can send this report off to somebody, standard Excel, PDF it, email it, what have you. One of the things that I won't be showing today, just because we don't have enough time, but we have a module called the Publisher. So those of you that are familiar with XLR, it's very similar to the Publisher module in XLR, but it's a lot more performance-minded. So what I can do is I can schedule the reports to run at whatever frequency that I want in one of a dozen formats. So I can schedule that automatically, and those reports will be distributed out to the team automatically. So you kind of get the feel for the product, just some of the key points of the product. now how did I make this product, or how did I build this product? What's important about this? So now I'm switching gears and I'm going over to the design mode, and I'm going to close down that layout editor so you can see more of the screen. So now as somebody that's building the report, you'll notice these are my modules inside of B1. These are the modules that come out of the box for SAP B1. So how did I build this report? This is all of the data. So as a customer, your specific modules would be in here. So how did I build this report? Well, if I open up budget rows, you'll notice that it says account code. So if I expand account code and I go down here into 22C, you'll see that it says natural account. Well, where did I get that? I drug natural account into 22C. And if it says natural account name, how did I get that? Well, it's an attribute of natural accounts. There's the name. I drug it in there. But I'm only dragging it in one time, and then once I pull that information in there, it's going to ask me to filter and just tell it what accounts to include. And that's kind of what I just closed on the layout editor. So very easy to access all of your data across all of the modules. I can combine data across modules, and this all makes sense to you when you're able to read. I mean, to anyone that's going to build a report, you're going to know what natural account is, natural account name. The nomenclature makes sense. So some other things to point out is that you can also use the period functions you can use the period functions that we have built into the product, but you can also use those things that are inherent with Excel. So it's really up to you. And what I mean by that is you notice that it says year to date over here. Well, if I just pulled up my functions, you'll notice that I have a whole list of period functions, right? So I pulled in year to date. I just drug it into column Q, cell Q19, and I took standard Excel. I drug it across. Now what it's doing is I drag it across these columns. It's now filtering all of these columns based on year to date. So very, very intuitive and very easy to build this report. And I'm going to tell you something about, from the reporting perspective, that's very important. Reporting is about two things. It's about, can you design it and build it up, and do you have access to the data? And we've already talked about we're going to get access to anywhere across your enterprise, and you know that if you know Excel. Everybody here can build a report that's attending today can build a report or a budget template inside of Excel. So most people know the tool inherently. So what I'll tell you is that if you don't like the way this report looks, fantastic. You can change it. It's very easy to change. So in that design mode, it's very easy to go up here and say, well, you know what, I don't want that color of blue, I want yellow, right? I distribute that report out. I'm giving you kind of a quick and simple example, but now you'll see that that's changed. Everything that I want to change inside the report is very simple to do, and I'm already familiar with the environment. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to open up another report. And I want to point out to you, I'm not choosing P&Ls because I like P&Ls better than any other report. The reason I'm choosing P&Ls to show you, because I virtually have hundreds of reports, and I can show you reports across every area of the business. The reason I'm choosing P&Ls is because what I'm trying to leave you with here today is picking one style of report and showing you multiple variations of how I can build that report. Really, it's up to you. If you don't like it, as I said, change it. And here what you're seeing is you're seeing a report that looks similar because it's got similar types of graphs, but all of my filtering is different. Right now I'm looking at actual month last year, actual year-to-date current year, actual year-to-date last year, which is very different than just year-to-date, which you saw before. You'll also notice that I have different filters over here, different parameters. If I wanted to include other companies, very easy for me to do that. Wait, I don't want Singapore, I want Australia, say okay, and I'm done. This is one style. I'm going to show you more. This is only one style of how to select companies. There's checkboxes, trees, etc. This is really up to you. You'll also notice that I have multiple budget versions here as well. So if I run this report, you're now going to see, a nice looking report, again, indicative of what you see inside of Excel. What I'm going to point out to you that's different is you'll notice that I changed the data source. The tool itself doesn't change. I just changed the data source because now maybe I want to include budgets that I might have outside of B1. Maybe I've got the BI360 budgeting solution and I want to include that. So what you'll notice is that it says scenario here, and if I open up scenario and it says forecast, if I change this to forecast, it would automatically change the title of this to forecast and it would bring back the forecast data. if I had multiple versions of a budget or a forecast, I would have version here as a filter. So as I scroll through this report, you'll see this one's got in-cell graphs. It's got a lot of the same stuff. It's off the data warehouse. I can still drill down. Now you'll notice that there's 4 filters, or 4 drill down levels, right? That was just because that's how the report was designed for me. And again, there's only one transaction. And go back into the report. If I scroll down this report further, I'll actually collapse it. You'll see that I've got expansion groups at the account level. Why? Just because that's the way I wanted to see it in this report, right? I can do all the same stuff. So I'm guessing everybody's probably got that by now, so let's get into the stuff that matters. So this report is built exactly the same way. If I open up General Ledger, you'll see there's my account, pull account into B20. If I open up account, there's my description, pull that into C20, right? So everybody gets that. But what do you notice here is that look at all of these modules in here that have nothing to do with what I would have inside of B1. We can start with Google Analytics, right? That's not going to be stored inside of B1, right? That's now in my data warehouse. I'm getting that information from Google. Maybe I want to build a report that shows, you know, my sales trend based on the number of people that visit our website and view products or do downloads or whatever it is. I can add that information now into my report. And maybe I want to add my CRM module in here, or maybe I want to go into, I have a maintenance system as an example. Lots of different things that I can do here. You can tell I did a mining demo recently. But you see it says any data. I can add any type of data in here that I want, right? It really doesn't matter to me. Whatever my business is or whatever that disparate data is, I can bring it in. So everybody's got that. The tool doesn't change. Really what's going to change is just the data source. So I'm going to give you a couple of other examples of reports before I build you one, just really quickly here, because I know that I'm going to tell you I'm going to show you another P&L, but there's a reason for that. I'm showing you another P&L, but it's vastly different than anything you've seen to date. So this is called a narrative P&L. And the first thing that you're going to notice about this is that I've got multiple tabs, directions on how to run the report or whatever that might be. And I've got a narrative here, and you'll notice that my graphs are not populated, that you see all the zeros in here. You'll notice that my description, moderate, by the way, is a default. So the profitability this month was moderate. That's a default. We've got lots and lots of different drivers built into this report. What you see is basic language, right? So I'm going to switch over here, and I'm going to go to the P&L variance side, and I'm going to run this report, and I'm going to come back to it so you understand what I'm talking about in a second. So again, another variation of a P&L, right? So you'll notice here that I've got multiple years of actuals. I've got an expansion group. I can see the individual months, not just the aggregated total. You're only limited by the number of years based on the number of years of data that you have. That's it. So yet another variation of the report. So why are these reports important? They're important if I want to give my department managers a little bit more information than just what they see here. So like the salespeople, the sales guys I have work for them, they see green, you know, for product revenue or services revenue, they say, hey, fantastic, we must be doing great. I see green traffic lights. But then it might not be looking at other indicators or other factors like an increase in the cost of sales over a period of quarters or months. And I might want to give them some kind of a narrative on that. The other great thing that these types of reports or report packs are good for is if I want to do a board level report, I want to do a management report. The way I would normally do this if I didn't have BI360 is I would take these numbers, I would transpose them out into Word or PowerPoint, and then I would do my presentation. Well, that works great until I come in and I run this report for a different company or a different period or a different scenario. Then I've got to take all those results and I've got to go back into Word or PowerPoint and transpose all those numbers again. Here's the way that we do it. So you'll notice, based on the drivers that are built into this report, and I virtually have 25 different variations of this report. You can include anything you want in these packs and you can build them however you want. But based on the data that was pulled, it's gone and updated the results. So United States sees great improvement, so that default moderate has changed. The profitability this month was great, and it's based on all the drivers that I've set that determine whether it's good, great, bad, whatever those drivers are, and it's giving me a narrative. If I were to go and change the period and get different results that were poor, it would say the probability this month was poor and all the other drivers would change. Not only do I have the P&L variance, but I can have a sales, so if I want to go up and look at my top 15 sales transactions, I can do that. I can look at payments, so my top vendor payments, receivables, etc. I can put in here anything that you want to see. So these are really powerful, and you can build an unlimited number of these reports. So my point in showing you P&Ls is I've shown you a P&L report live off of SAP V1. Again, build it however you want. I've shown you P&L with budget data off the data warehouse with different drill down levels, and then I've shown you a narrative P&L with a multiple report pack. So basically, if you took this same philosophy across any report that you're building, you can see that you can build, you're limited by your imagination and your design capabilities within Excel. That's really it, okay, because I've got all of my data. So with that, I'm going to spend a few minutes, and I am going to build you a report. I won't build you anything real fancy, but I'll build you something that illustrates the point. So as you know, I'm going to go up in here, say new blank. So I can build this off of B1, or I can build this off the data warehouse. I'm going to build it off the data warehouse just because I want to show you a couple of things that you get with the data warehouse that you don't get necessarily inside of B1, and I'll make sure I point those out. There's only two differences. One is the data and one is the trees. That's really it. So I'm going to go into Excel, and I'm going to do all the formatting stuff that I like to do, right? I'm going to format all of my columns however I want. All this is just standard Excel stuff, right? So, and it doesn't matter whether I start typing in or adding stuff in. I can change the column width at any time. So I'm going to build you a trial balance. Oops. So I'm just typing in the headers. Now I'm going to actually start building the report. So I'm inside of my general ledger. I'm going to pull in my account. Everybody already knows about that. Do you notice, though, as soon as I pulled in the account, it's asking me, how do I want to create a selection group? So how do I want to filter my accounts? Do I want to do that across the row, down the column, or not at all? And you can tell by my headers I'm going across the row, which is going to be most of my financial reports. So I select that, and you'll notice that my layout editor here, it brought in accounts. So it's asking me what accounts do I want to include. So I can say all of these, but not this one or this one or this one. I can also include ranges. So this is really important. If you've ever been frustrated before because you've added an account inside of V1 and it wasn't included, you don't have to worry about that. If you use ranges, it'll automatically add the account. And let's just say this is an example. It would automatically add the account unless you came back and said, wait, I don't want prepaid in there. Okay? So very, very powerful in terms of filtering all of your accounts. For demonstration purposes, I'm going to filter everything. So now I need the description for my account. Where am I going to find that? Pretty simple. Pull in my descriptions, an attribute of account. Now I need to create some kind of period. Now I could use a calendar date range, or I could use Excel formatting, but I'm going to use one of our period functions. And I'm going to bring in year to date. I'm going to bring in last year to date. And then I'm also going to write a variance for you, just so you know I'm actually in Excel and nothing changes. And by the way, you see my filters here for columns D and E. This is the year-to-date and last year-to-date. If I change this and said last year-to-date because I don't want it to say the default, no problem. It doesn't affect the filtering at all. Now I need an amount. Where am I going to find that amount? I'm going to go back into either my ERP or my data warehouse. I'm going to pull the amount in. Standard Excel stuff, I pull it across. I'm going to write my variance formula. And the only thing I need left to do now is add a total. So if I was building a P&L, right, I would obviously do this. I would copy this and paste it down, two rows lower, and then I would add a different set of accounts, right? It's still going to do the exact same thing, right? It's going to bring in my revenue. It's going to bring in my expenses, etc. So now I need to add this up. You remember when I was inside I right-click, it drilled down. Now it recognizes I'm in design. It recognizes there's an amount above me. If I right-click, I can build more of these buttons, but I've got an auto sum. So auto sum it, don't even really need to leave the page, pull it across. For all intents and purposes, I just finished this report. So let's make it look a little bit more like a real report, right? I don't want to leave you guys with an ugly looking report, so let's make it pretty. I know finance people, they love blue, so they don't like red. So I am going to bold this. Let's do a little right justification. Let's do some dollars here. How about a row, total row? I mean, whatever you want to do, really, right? It's completely up to you and how you want to build this. I don't want the account. I want the account to be in the middle, just my preference. So there it is. Looks more like a real report now, right? So I send this report out. My department manager gets the report, assuming they're using Excel. Now, keep in mind, they can do this via the web as well. They wouldn't be scared of the ribbon and all those other things. So they see the report. They say, thanks, Mike, for the report. They're going to drill down or scroll down to find the data that they want, and they're going to say, I want to run it for September. I run the report. There's my trial balance. Okay, so, and hopefully this is sample data. Hopefully none of you have a trial balance that looks like that. So, all right, I get it. It's not rocket science. I built a trial balance. That's probably not impressive. So I sent this report out, and I sent it to Joe, and Joe said, you know what, Mike, I like this report, but all you're doing is, I have 2 regions, and in my regions, I have 4 companies. And I've got 2 different lines of business. And all you did was consolidate everything together for me. I'd really like to see it broken down by entity. Oh, okay, Joe. I'm happy to do that for you. So I bring it back in. I said, Joe wants this report by entity. So I'm going to make a change. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pull out my layout editor. And you notice if I move my cursor into the layout editor box there, it turns blue. I'm going to filter the entire sheet. What am I going to filter it on? I'm going to filter it on entity. I can virtually filter it on anything that I have inside of my general ledger, excuse me, inside of my data warehouse. So let's create a new parameter. What do I want to name that parameter? I'll keep it at entity. Remember I said there were several styles that I can choose from? Checkbox is great if I want to compare one versus the other, but I am going to do a tree because that's what Joe asked for. So I select tree. I can filter out the companies here, just like you saw me filter accounts earlier. I'm going to keep them all in there, and I can also do create sheet per value. What makes this cool is that it's going to give me the aggregated total on one tab for the region, or whatever level that is, right? Could be products, but for the region in this case. And then separate tabs, it's going to give me the individual entities. So I say finish. The only other thing that I need to do here is I want the title of the entity, and I'm going to get that from my parameters. I'm going to go into entity, and I'm going to pull entity in here. And what would have taken 20 seconds if I wasn't talking so much, I completely have a new report right now. So if I open up the lines of business, the geography, you'll notice that I've got different regions here. So I'm just opening them up to show you, but so now Joe says, cool, thanks Mike, this is more what I'm looking for. I want to run this on my Asia Pacific region. So what Joe has now is the Asia Pacific region, that's the aggregated total, but then also has the individual entities underneath that. So here I'm looking at Singapore, and here I'm looking at Australia. If Joe says, well, you know what, I just want to run it on one of the entities, I just want to run it on Canada, where's Canada? Don't have to aggregate it. Or maybe Joe says, you know what, Mike, thanks for adding in the lines of business, because I had a tree for that as well. So he wants to know which companies are, see the companies by business line. So I'm going to look at my distribution companies, and now I'm looking at the distribution companies, and coincidentally, those are Canada and Singapore, right? And I see that same exact fashion, okay? So yes, this was a trial balance just because it's a simple report to build within the time frame that I have today, but imagine that you can use this type of filtering and adding parameters across any report that you build. It's very easy to do. There was no trickery in here. You're watching me do it exactly how it would be done if you were doing it yourself. Okay, so now I'm going to get rid of my beautiful work, and we're going to switch gears yet again. So what I did before was I logged into my web portal. So I have a username and a password, and I logged into my web portal, and now I'm seeing the dashboards and the reports that are specific to me in my web view environment. So this is web-based, logged into the web portal. I'm filtering through my dashboards and different reports. So the first thing you start to see about this is I've got a lot of reports. I've got a lot of views of my reports, right? I'm not looking at Excel files. I'm actually looking at snapshots of the reports that were published and uploaded to the web portal specifically for me. So you remember this report, right? This was the second P&L that I showed you, and you'll notice that it looks like it's Excel, but it's not Excel. I'm not intimidated by any ribbon. It's very easy for me to, and very intuitive for me from a user experience. I can also go navigate through my favorites as I'm on this report in case I want to run something else. I can reflect back to previous times that I ran this report. I see what my data source is if you want to show that to your users. And I have the ability to change all the parameters the same that I had when I was inside of Excel. So if I wanted to go and change the entities, I can do that all right here, the same fashion. So I will expand this report just so that you can see it a little bit more. You'll notice that I have the ability to share this with a QR or a link. I have the ability to download this to Excel. Why would I want to do that? Because I can't build anything in here and I can't change anything. So maybe I want to download this to Excel and I want to run my own numbers and calculations. Fantastic. I'm not affecting anybody's work or anything else within the company. And I can expand and collapse it. So looking at the report via the web, I can do all the same things. When I drill down to the transaction level, there you see the transaction. I can do all the same stuff that I could do before. This one doesn't have an expansion group, but it does have conditional formatting. But if I wanted that, I could certainly put it in here as well. So I think enough on P&Ls. So let's talk about some other reports that were kind of the things that we were talking about. You already know from the data warehouse perspective I can do consolidations. And I'd like to show some different flavors of reports, and I'll show you consolidation. And by the way, I could also change the view to a thumbnail if I wanted to. I just think flip-throughs are cool, and I like going through it. Here's an example of a consolidation report for those people that have multiple companies. Again, you don't like the way the report looks, fantastic, change it. It's completely up to you. So I'll expand this report. Actually, I'll collapse it back down to show first that I can change the entities that I'm going to run. And why is that important? Because I've got my entities that are running across the columns. And if I expand it up, you can see here I've got a P&L with my companies across the columns. If I start to scroll down, see all the data for the report. Very, very simple, very easy to work within this environment. Okay? And just a couple of other flavors of reports. I will change the view for you just so it's faster for me to navigate through. Let's talk about things like sales by customer class. So you want to see sales by customer class. Or sales by customer, excuse me, and I'm showing the product classes. So here if I expand this up, you can see I'm looking at my different products that I sell, right? And I'm looking at my different customers. So this report is actually coming live from the ERP. I can still drill down into all the information, a small sampling of the types of reports that you could create. Additionally, let me show you another view of a report that would be sales by product class. So here you're seeing that I have my product categories and then my individual products, and I'm looking at actuals. And if I wanted to expand that group, oh, there's no data inside of that group. Sorry about that. But if I wanted to add multiple periods of actuals in there, I could have. And also I've got actuals, my last year, my variance percentage, and then I've also in this particular report got expansion groups again. So just to show you the expansion groups work within the web portal environment, I just collapsed both of those years, and now you're just looking at the aggregated totals. Again, scrolling down, you're all standard Excel charts and graphs to be able to see more expansive product information. If you're interested in If you're interested in seeing more from an inventory perspective, I'm by the way, just to tell you too, I'm in a model for web reporting and dashboards. This is our distribution model. We have 12 different models that cover different industries, and we're continuing to add more. We can build reports, as I said in the beginning, reports, dashboards, and budgets and forecast templates across any vertical. So here you're looking at an inventory report, so I can immediately look at things like my mid-max levels. I know what my 30-day forecast is. If I want to go and dive into one of these customer order areas, I can right-click and I can see what customers have what orders on hand, or what quantities on order, excuse me. So here I'm looking at Kelly Consulting, located in Auckland, and I'm looking at unit quantities and amounts and everything else. So again, you can build just about any type of report that you want to build. So with that, I'll show you a couple of dashboards, and then I'll move to a different environment just to show you a little bit of budgeting. So from a dashboard perspective, it really comes down to, what do you want to build? Again, these are live off of B1 or off the data warehouse. And here I can go and look at product sales dashboards. If I open up the dashboard and run it, all of the information is running live. And you'll notice that as soon as I move my cursor over things, so I'm looking at revenue trend, this is bringing back actuals from either the ERP or from the data warehouse as I scroll through. If I was looking at product sales and I wanted to pick a different product, you'll notice that as I pick that product, the metrics will all change. If I want to go over to the right-hand side here and it says top products by gross margin, and I want to drill to the customer, so I say I want to look at Tutti Frutti, and I drill into that, I can see who my top customers are based on the Tutti Frutti product. And no, I didn't come up with that nomenclature. If I want to go and look at top products by sales dollars and drill to the customer, I can go in and say, show me that Cola Star, and here I'm going to see the different customers, the top customers. Okay, so you can build all different types of drill downs in here, and you notice this has got a little bit of a formatted twist to it as well. It's completely up to you on how you want to build these. Just like report writing uses the same integration capabilities, and these squares that you see here, these dashlets, are very, very easy to build when you save them. Perfect example, top products by gross margin. If you built this, you could save it. You could pull it into any dashboard that you build. Very, very easy for customers to control and build their dashboards. I'll show you one more dashboard just because I think we have enough time for one more, just to get into this. So customer sales dashboard. So similar but different. So going into customer sales, if I were to select it, you're going to see again the metrics change. I can also do things like bring in my aging by customer, right? So I know what levels they're at. If I wanted to bring in aging buckets, I'm only limited by my imagination. I can bring in whatever I want. And it's the same type of stuff that you saw before in terms of drilling down. Okay. And when we talk about verticals, this is a distribution model, but if we talk about verticals, let's say I was showing this to somebody in the audience that was not-for-profit, I would log into my not-for-profit model, and what I'd be able to show them would be things that would be specific to them. Grants, membership, those types of things. And that goes across any of the verticals that we have: healthcare, retail, not-for-profit, professional services, distribution, manufacturing, etc. So we can do that on one-offs. If there's people that are interested in seeing the product later, we'd be more product more solution specific. But this is just to give you a general idea of some of the types of things that you can do. So now what I'm going to do is I am actually going to log off of this, and I'm going to try to close with showing you 5 minutes or so of budgeting. And I'm going to log into a different model. So this is exactly how the user would log in. And I'm actually accessing a server from Asia all the way back in the US, just so that everybody knows from perspective of speed. You'll notice one thing I didn't point out earlier when we were in the distribution. You notice here that I have different folders. So these are all predefined for me. So if I'm going to look, if I want to go look at my consolidation reports or financial or sales reports, you can define these in advance. And you can also see too that I've got things like product dashboards as well. So what we're going to talk about for the last few minutes is budgeting. So just like report writing, in just the same way you saw me build a report earlier, right? I built that report in the data warehouse. I use exactly the same integration, same data set, right? The data warehouse, and the same tool to build all of my budgets. So here you see an example of assumptions, or what we call a driver template. So I can still build, drivers inside the individual templates, or I can build assumption or driver templates themselves that will drive either 1 or 10 or a global driver for all templates. Things like Medicare deductions, things like your CapEx life, days per month, whatever you want to build a driver for, maybe sales increases, anything you can think of that you want to drive other templates, percentages or what have you, you can build an unlimited number of these assumption templates. So you can also see personnel template. This is just one example. I've got many. CapEx, you kind of get it. Sales budgets, if I don't like this one, I can build it however I want. Again, flexibility of Excel. So I'll open up my expense model. So you notice it looks just like the reports I was showing you earlier, right? I build it the same way, right? And so this is one of the things that it takes a bit for people to kind of wrap their mind around, but if you think about people typically building budgets in Excel, they've got multiple tabs, right? And they're distributing it out to 50 different people, and each one of those people have their own worksheet, and then somebody's consolidating all of that because all the data is inside of Excel, and that's a consolidation version control nightmare, and that's what people hate about Excel from a budgeting perspective. The good news is that we get rid of all of that. Right? You still get what you left, format, formulation, and design. But again, we're not storing any data inside of Excel. So what you see up here from a parameter perspective, this is assuming I'm the master budget person, right? So I have multiple entities that I can choose from, multiple departments, et cetera, et cetera. So in the real world, you're probably going to see people that would contribute to multiple departments. So you wouldn't see entity, and maybe you don't want them to change the period or any of these other parameters. So they would just have multiple departments here. They'd go and enter their data in for Department 100. They'd come up here. They would switch to they'd only see the departments they have access to. They'd go to, let's say it was Finance and Accounting. They'd select Finance and Accounting. They'd enter their data in, and they'd come up there and say save. And in fact, you can remove all of these other buttons except for the check mark in Workflow and for save. So there's also another level. Let's say that your people are super basic and you don't want them to change any of this data. You just want to deliver to them the budget that you want them to fill out, and that's it. Well, it's kind of going to look like this. I just expanded it, but you don't see any parameters. So the person that's contributing, the department, the company, everything's already been defined for them. They come into their budget. They say, okay, I'm doing conference and seminars. It's going to be $60,000. And I'm going to do that standard Excel stuff that I'm used to. I'm going to drag it all the way across here, but in May, I'm going to change that to $70,000. I have a higher expenditure, and I'm done. I just go up and say save or submit, and I'm done. It's that easy. Now, if I said, well, we're not quite that easy, and these are things that you can add to your budget, is I could say, maybe I want to go in here and do something a little bit different. So it's I want to zero this out, and I want to copy in history, and I want to apply that. So you notice I've got reference data here. So it's giving me, in this case, my last year's actuals, and I just said, well, copy in last year's actuals. But I want to increase that by 8%, and I just increased it by 8%. I'd say, okay, come out there, save my budget, and I'm done. Okay? And there's other trending capabilities that I can do by quarter, by previous years. I can look at the peaks and valleys to those previous years. And do increases, lots of different things that I can do. So you're probably asking yourself, why do some of these have borders and some don't? Well, the border indicates that there is line item detail underneath this. So if I were to go into here and just right click, you'll notice that I have line item detail in here. By the way, it's also important to point out that this is a shared environment. We share it with a lot of partners, and a lot of customers can actually go in here too to kind of learn the product. And sometimes when people enter in data, they're pretty creative. So if somebody's entered in here bat, cat, and hat, so we'll just keep on that. We'll say rat. So I'm entering in my line item detail for consulting, my rat detail, and I can say 800 that I'm entering in March, and in August I'm going to enter in 900, et cetera, et cetera. I say OK, it's going to roll up to that account, and I'm done. All right, submit it, I'm done. You can also do other things, like you'll notice here that I'm feeding data from another template. This is coming from the payroll template. This is assuming that I needed to see on those payroll numbers inside of my expense model. And I can't change anything, by the way, and that's what kind of a blue and yellow indicates. Yellow indicates I can change it, blue indicates I can't change it. So if I tried, I wouldn't be able to. You'll also notice over here that I have actual months, and again, just like anything else you've seen today, I can decide how much actual data that I want to bring in. And I can also, the only other tab that I have is for instructions. These are basically demo instructions and a little bit of product instructions, but in the real world, these would be step-by-step instructions for your customers, or excuse me, your contributors. So somebody that's going to enter in budget, you would get step-by-step instructions on how to submit the budget, maybe your policies or procedures, so there'd be no questions about, you know, what my my policies were within my department. So pretty simple stuff. And again, you don't like the way the budget template looks. Everybody's probably heard this enough. Fantastic. Go ahead and change it. And with that, I didn't have enough time, I don't think, to show you the ad hoc query tool, but I've shown you quite a bit today. And again, we can also do one-off demos if there's further interest. But that would conclude today's session, and then happy to field any questions.
Mike, that was absolutely mind-blowing. It's Simon here again. That was amazing. I mean, I even want this, and I don't even need it. It was that good. When I look at the, for example, the news tab on the management pack that you showed earlier, I mean, the idea that that'll just automatically generate each month and give me a commentary on how well the organization's done for the month, that is just awesome. When I look at this budget stuff and I see how this could be a shared tool amongst, you know, one or more business units in an organization in terms of consolidating and getting people to enter their budget information, that is amazing. I don't know. I'm going to open this up to the audience. I can see that, Mike, you've obviously done a great job because most of the people that joined us to begin with are still with us. So I'm sure there's going to be some questions to be asked. So probably now what I'll do is I'll ask anybody who has a question, if you can use the chat window to type in your question. I will then read out the question so that the entire audience can hear what the question is, and either Mike or Andre will help me out by answering these questions. So please now, dear audience, if you'd like to ask your questions, we can go from there. Mike, that was a great demonstration. Thank you so much. And yep, we already have our first question here. First question, Mike, can profit and loss reports be run by project? So I'm gathering that would be using the project codes in SAP Business One. Mike, what do you think?
100%. So if you're going to run it by project, as you probably saw when I was in the data warehouse, we had a project module, and also if you've got a project module inside of B1, we'll have access to all that data. So including project data and building an unlimited number of reports off project data is standard stuff for us.
Excellent. We already have quite a lot of customers using the BI360 tool, for those of you that are thinking of getting into this. And I got to tell you, our customers, we've done a few implementations now. We've got some very good in-house resources to guide you and get this set up for you. The customers that we have using BI360 are all absolutely mad for it. I mean, we can even have you have a chat with one or two of them. It's that good. I'm going to go straight to the next question. This question is, does BI360 integrate with SAP Business One version 2007? Who is using SAP B1 2007? You ought to be ashamed. How can you be using B1 2007 today? I'm sure there's a good reason. I'm kidding, obviously. Mike or Andre, does BI360 integrate with SAP Business One 2007?
I don't know. I can check for you though, and you can get back to that person if you want to get their details. I have to go look at the system requirements. To be honest, I don't know.
Okay.
Not off the top of my head.
Andre,
I can try to find out for you really quickly. I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'll actually try to find out for you while we're.
So we may even have the answer by the end of this session. All right. In the meantime, let me ask the next question. Can you filter data by currency? For example, customer invoices raised in US dollar, euro, and Australian dollar, and then report sales in different columns, amounts, etc.
That's a great question. Whoever asked that question today should get a gold star because you know, I often get asked the question, well, why do you have multi-currency if the ERP does multiple currency? Well, the ERP does multiple currency from a transaction perspective, but let's say I was working, my transactions were in the AUD and the USD, and I said, well, that's fantastic, but I'd like to be able to convert that all over into Hong Kong dollars and look at any rate differences or whatever else. I can do that because you remember my data warehouse is pulling in those rates, and it's allowing me to use whatever rate that I want. Do I want to use the average or what have you, daily, monthly, whatever it is that I want to do. But so it's storing an unlimited number of rates, and the currency in which the transactions happen in the ERP, that's just an attribute of the transaction, right? So if you capture that data within the ERP, right, which you know you have, then we certainly can add it to a report. I could look at every invoice that was done per period. I could look at whatever currency it was. I could filter it out however I want, just like you saw me filter everything else out. And not to mention that you can also do that type of stuff kind of standard from a filtering perspective inside of Excel.
Yep, that was a great question, and in fact I know who that was. Hello, Christine. All right, now this next question, Mike, I'm sure is the $64,000 question, although I'm hoping that's not the answer. How much would this roughly cost?
Yeah, I'll defer that over to Andre and his team. I'm not the sales guy, so the easy answer is it depends on what components that you're implementing. So let me illustrate that really quickly by showing the architecture again. And by the way, everybody knows that the architecture is not indicative of the total product offering. So here I'm showing the architecture again, so everybody should be able to see my screen. So if you were just wanting live reporting, for example, that's just this one component. That's all you need. If you say, hey, I just want to report off of B1, maybe those of you that are looking for an XLR replacement, that would be this component. And Andre can get and team can give you the pricing. So if you said later, well, yeah, you know what, I want to report off of disparate data, then you can add the data warehouse. If later you said, well, I want to do dashboards or web-based reporting or planning, you can just add those components as you go. The value of that is that everything works with the same integration. Everything can be added as you go or grow your business or your requirements, and it can be delivered either via Excel or the web. But you can add it as you go. So the sales question, pricing question really is dependent on what functionality that you're adding.
Fantastic. Andre, are you there? No, I think we may
I
have...
am. I'm
Ah,
just
good, there you are.
I'm just running away from the pricing question because I
Oh,
was hoping Mike would have. But no, I'm kidding. We've got all the pricing information, so happy to field any specific questions regarding that. And as Mike said, I guess it depends on the components that you're looking for. That will determine more or less what the solution would cost.
Mm. Well, that's great. I mean, I guess if anyone wants to take this a step further, obviously MicroChannel is the place to come to find out more information about that. We don't have time to take any more questions. In fact, I see we have already... No, I'm going to ask this one more question because this is a good one. In SAP Business One, we run our reporting off document date, not posting date. I want to know the answer to this. This is a good one. Can BI360 base its reporting off document date instead of posting date?
100%.
Yeah, Simon, sorry, I'm not sure if it's come through on your end. I've actually replied to the question via the text or the panel. It's definitely possible, as Mike confirmed. We can do it because we're using the measures and dimensions within standard B1. We've got access to all those fields. So it's just a matter of dragging it and dropping the fields that you're looking for.
Great. All right, everybody. Well, it's now 3 minutes past 3 on this lovely Thursday afternoon here in Sydney. I don't know what it's like around the rest of Australia or indeed around the world. Mike, I know that you're not here in Australia, so thank you very, very much for coming to play with us today. I really enjoyed the presentation, and I'm sure that the 100+ people we had attend today enjoyed it just as much too. It's an amazing looking product, and I think it really enhances SAP B1 to another level, and I know that our customers who currently use BI360 absolutely love it, and from what I've seen today, I can definitely see why. So I'm going to wrap up today's session. For those of you that have come along today, thank you so much. We really appreciate the time that you've spent with us today. I hope it's been a really valuable session for you all, and please do make contact with us if you have any further questions or would like to know more about BI360. But in the meantime, I'll wish you all a great day, and we'll see you all next time. Thank you. Goodbye.